The Galactic Military Academy's training hall fell silent as Instructor Vexther strutted onto the platform, his four arms gesturing dramatically. The Kralathi warrior stood nearly 3 meters tall, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the artificial lights of the station orbiting Centauri Prime. "Welcome, cadets," Vexther's translator crackled, his mandibles clicking with what the software interpreted as amusement. "I am your combat instructor for advanced warfare tactics. Before we begin, let me establish credentials." Harry Chen sat in the third row, his datapad recording every word. The young man from Luna Colony had heard rumors about Vexther, a decorated veteran of the Kralathi expansion wars, responsible for numerous victories against lesser species. Harry glanced sideways at Honey Morrison, the only other human in their cohort of 63 cadets. Honey sat perfectly still, her dark eyes fixed on the instructor. She was from Earth, actual Earth, not one of humanity's gentler colonies. Specifically from the Australian outback, though she'd spent years in what remained of the Amazon basin. Harry had learned not to ask too many questions about her past. "During the third border conflict," Vexther continued, his voice swelling with pride, "my battalion encountered a human military outpost on Kepler 442b. 47 humans defended a mining facility." He paused for effect, his four eyes scanning the diverse assembly of alien cadets. "We eliminated them in less than 6 of your Earth minutes." A few cadets chittered nervously. The Galactic Council had officially condemned such conflicts, but everyone knew that enforcement was selective at best. "Humans," Vexther said, his mandibles spreading in what the translator interpreted as a grin, "are soft creatures, weak. They evolved on a low-gravity world with minimal predators. Their reaction times are pathetic. Their strength is laughable." He flexed his four arms, each capable of lifting 300 kilograms. "I personally dispatched 12 of them, like crushing insects." Harry felt his jaw tighten. He wanted to object, but he was a pilot candidate, not a combat specialist. Besides, what Vexther said had some truth to it. Compared to most spacefaring species, baseline humans were physically inferior. It was why humanity had invested so heavily in technology and tactics rather than brute force. But Honey was different. She still hadn't moved, but Harry noticed her breathing had changed. Slower, deeper. He recognized that pattern from their survival training exercises. It was the calm before a storm. "Of course," Vexther continued, warming to his subject, "the Council now insists we treat humans as equals, as if the weakest species in the galaxy deserves a seat at the—" "Instructor," Honey's voice cut through the hall like a vibroblade through flesh. The room froze. Speaking out of turn at the academy was a serious breach of protocol, especially for a first-year cadet. Vexther's head swiveled toward her, all four eyes narrowing. "Did you just interrupt me, human?" Honey stood slowly, her movements fluid and controlled. At 175 centimeters, she was dwarfed by most species in the room, including the instructor who towered over her by more than a meter. "Yes, sir. I have a question." "This should be entertaining," Vexther clicked. "Speak." "You said you killed 12 humans on Kepler 442b. That facility was a civilian mining operation, not a military outpost. The humans there were engineers and geologists." Honey's voice remained perfectly calm, almost conversational. "So my question is, how many of them were armed?" The instructor's exoskeleton plates shifted, a Kralathi expression of irritation. "That is irrelevant to combat effectiveness." "Is it, sir?" Honey took a step forward. "Because if you're establishing your credentials as a warrior by describing how you slaughtered unarmed civilians, I think it's quite relevant." A collective intake of breath rippled through the assembled cadets. Harry closed his eyes briefly. "Here we go." "You dare question my honor, human?" Vexther's voice dropped to a dangerous register. "Perhaps you'd like a practical demonstration of the difference between your species and mine." "Actually, sir, I would." Honey walked toward the platform with measured steps. If you're going to teach us combat tactics, shouldn't we understand the capabilities of all species represented here, including humans? The instructor's mandibles clacked rapidly, laughter. Very well. Since you're so eager to embarrass yourself and your weak species, I'll oblige. He gestured to the sparring ring at the center of the platform. Standard Academy combat rules. First to incapacitation or submission. No weapons, no enhancement tech. Harry wanted to call out to stop this insanity, but he knew Honey well enough by now. She wouldn't back down, not from this. As they entered the ring, the size difference became even more apparent. Vexthor had at least 150 kilograms on Honey, 4 arms versus her 2, natural armor plating, and reflexes honed through thousands of years of evolution as an apex predator. Begin, the automated referee system announced. Vexthor didn't waste time with posturing. He lunged forward with surprising speed, all 4 arms reaching to grapple Honey in what was clearly meant to be a quick, humiliating pin. He never connected. Honey dropped low, her movement so sudden it seemed like she'd simply vanished from Vexthor's line of attack. As his massive body overextended, she drove her shoulder into his leading knee joint, one of the few vulnerable points on a Kralath's exoskeleton. The crack echoed through the silent hall. Vexthor roared in pain and surprise, stumbling. But he was a trained warrior. He recovered quickly, spinning with his 3 remaining functional limbs to catch the small human. She was already inside his guard. What happened next took less than 3 seconds, but Harry would remember every detail for the rest of his life. Honey's elbow struck Vexthor's thorax joint with surgical precision, targeting the neural cluster that coordinated his upper arms. Both right arms went limp. Before he could compensate, she'd pivoted behind him, using his own mass against him, and drove her knee into the soft joint behind his other rear leg. The instructor crashed to the mat, 3 of his 4 limbs compromised. You evolved to hunt in packs on plains with clear sightlines, Honey said calmly, pressing her knee against the vulnerable spot between Vexthor's head and thorax, a killing point on any Kralathi. Her voice carried across the silent hall. We evolved to hunt persistence prey across varied terrain while being hunted by ambush predators. Do you know what Earth's gravity is compared to your homeworld? Vexthor gurgled something incomprehensible. 1.4 times Kralath's gravity. Do you know how many different species on Earth could kill an unaugmented human? Hundreds, daily. Honey's voice never rose above conversational level, but every word rang with absolute certainty. We didn't evolve as apex predators, instructor. We evolved as stubborn, adaptable survivors on a Deathworld. We turned every disadvantage into a weapon, every weakness into strategy. She released him and stood, offering her hand to help him up. Vexthor ignored it, struggling to his feet with his 2 functioning arms, his pride wounded far more severely than his body. Those humans you killed on Kepler 442b, Honey continued. They weren't soldiers. They were miners and scientists who never had a chance. But if you ever face actual trained human combat specialists, the ones who grew up on Earth, who trained in real gravity, who learned to survive on a world that actively tries to kill its inhabitants. She paused. Well, sir, I hope you have better tactics than what you demonstrated today. The silence in the hall was absolute. Finally, the automated referee system spoke. Match concluded. Cadet Morrison victorious by incapacitation of opponent. Honey walked back to her seat beside Harry, who stared at her with a mixture of awe and concern. That, he whispered, was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen. Probably both, Honey admitted quietly. But someone needed to remind him, and everyone else here, that humans didn't get into space by being weak. We got here by being too stubborn to quit and smart enough to survive anything the universe throws at us. Instructor Vexthor limped from the platform, his earlier arrogance completely evaporated. The lesson he'd intended to teach had been delivered, just not in the way he'd expected. As the academy medics attended to the instructor's damaged limbs, the other cadets began whispering among themselves, casting new looks at the two humans in their midst. Respect, caution, curiosity. The dynamics had shifted. Harry glanced at Honey, who had already pulled out her datapad and was calmly reviewing the day's syllabus as if nothing extraordinary had happened. He smiled slightly. The galaxy was still learning what it meant when humans called their homeworld Terra. Not just Earth. Terra, the Deathworld, and Honey Morrison, quiet and unassuming, was a perfect ambassador for that terrifying truth. Humanity might not be the strongest species in the galaxy, but they were survivors, and in the long run, that counted for far more than raw strength. The class continued, but the lesson everyone remembered had nothing to do with the official curriculum. It was simpler and far more profound. Never underestimate a human, especially one from Earth.